Hello, hello. Today we have Allison Yee on the podcast. Hey, Allison. Welcome to Girl Gang Craft, the podcast.
Hey, Phoebe, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Thank you so much for being here. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do at Popping Up Next?
Absolutely. I'm the founder and CEO of UpNext, which I launched back in 2018. So we're coming up on 7 years. And we are all about supporting emerging brands to test drive brick and mortar spaces to develop and grow through non traditional formats and creating an ecosystem of resources and connections for everyone to thrive in this crazy world of retail. And we do it a few different ways, which, I'm happy to share all the details around. But really, we are all about low risk, high impact opportunities for brands to grow.
Amazing. And we also are around 7 years. So we have very similar footprints. I love it. Okay, how did you get into this space? Were you in retail beforehand?
Yes, I like to say I've worked in every facet of retail. So I did working on the boutique sales floor. I worked for TJX in merchandising and planning and allocation. I was a buyer. I was on the retail real estate development side, which is where I stumbled upon the world of pop-ups. So I worked in a lot of different parts of the industry and learned so much about each of them to be able to see that some things were really stuck in old ways and it was time for change. And the more that I leaned into that, the more excited I got about what those possibilities looked like. And also I just have a passion for independent brands and finding ways for them to grow in this landscape.
So how did Popping Up Next come to be?
So up next came to be through like a series of crazy light bulb moments that I had only read about. But basically at the time I was working for a local retail real estate developer. I had started their retail incubation division, so I had done worn a lot of different hats around retail properties. But as I was going through this, I was getting so much excitement and energy around the process of launching a pop up each time. So, giving an opportunity to a brand founder who could never in a million years at that stage sign the 5, 10, 20-year lease that a big property was looking for. And and then getting this opportunity to get in front of an ideal customer and test things out and not have to pay for the build out of a space or remortgage their home or do any of these wild things that a traditional lease requires. And I just started thinking that this is the window of opportunity for me to build something and go all in because I had always dabbled in entrepreneurship. I had had lots of side hustles and major passion for small business, but this was really that idea spark where I felt the confidence to go out on my own, to leave corporate life, and to really start building something.
Amazing. And so what did those sort of like first steps look like for you as you established your business?
Well, I got the support of my husband, my family to really make this investment in myself and in our lives to step away from corporate paycheck benefits and go completely 100% in. I already had a young family, so lots of responsibilities to juggle. And basically just started little by little looking for the first developer partnerships and opportunities. My very first project that summer of 2018 came through a former colleague, and we built a pop up village with shipping containers as the vehicle. Uh, and it was exactly in line with the type of work that we started doing ever since. So, finding lots of brands that were interested in this opportunity, could only staff for a weekend at a time or a week, and wanted to try something new and different, and creating lots of collaborations and partnerships with other businesses. So, in the food space, in the experience space, there was a beer garden, there were all of these elements that built an experience that people were attracted to. And then early on, I started to see the sparks fly among brands because, as I'm sure you know from the market world, when people get together and talk and bounce around ideas, it's just phenomenal to see how much bigger and better things can become. So that became a big part of our approach from early on. How can we put people together in a really meaningful way? How can we match make not just the brand and the space, but the brands with one another and find their synergies and just open the doors for them to think creatively as their businesses are getting set up.
So I imagine that COVID had a toll on your business. Can you talk us through a little bit about what that looked like for you and the small businesses that you worked with?
Absolutely. For everyone, COVID was such a shock and a time to reflect and figure out how to make the pivot. But essentially, it ended up creating a new pathway for us at UpNext that has been wonderful. It has had such a silver lining for us and the brands that we support. So in 2021, we had the opportunity to start applying for some grant funding and open retail incubator storefronts. So we started working directly with cities and towns and getting public dollars, grant funding from a variety of different sources to open these hubs of economic development. Because with all the stores closing and everyone, trying to figure out what was next, if they wanted to sustain a permanent storefront, there was a lot of vacancy. It was really sad to go downtown. People were unsure what the retail climate would be long term. And so we were both meeting that need with bringing vibrancy back to these main streets and downtowns and giving an opportunity for brands that was way more accessible than we had ever been able to do before. So we launched what we now call Project Pop-Up, and essentially we rotate seasonally through a storefront. Sometimes it's a few months at a time, sometimes it's a multi-year commitment where we've got a great storefront in partnership with the city or town, and then we're opening applications to brands, we're building collaborations among them, or they're applying together. Sometimes a brand takes the full space, but they get lots of resources through that. They get a rent stipend, so reduced from market rate rent. They get fixtures. We build really turnkey spaces so that they can focus on what it's like to run a brick and mortar day to day without all of the different pieces that typically go into it. We help them with signage, we help them with marketing, and it's still a lot of work. They still have so much to do on a day-to-day basis, but they're getting a really great test drive of being in a particular community, deciding if they actually want retail to be part of their day-to-day or if it's something that they pull on a seasonal basis as a marketing tool. And then they get the collaboration, the community, our support, the local economic development office, the mayor, whoever it may be. They get a lot of people behind them that are cheering for their success. And so that has been really amazing. We've done over 20 different storefronts to date. We've been all around Massachusetts. We started doing holiday ones where we do little pop-up op boxes or small mobile formats, so that just a quick week at a time. So there's all different ways that this has grown and evolved. And we get a lot of inquiries from out of state too. So we may be looking to bring this elsewhere beyond Massachusetts, but it's just been a really amazing experience. So as heartbreaking as the pandemic has been in so many ways, there are these little nuggets of hope and light that it has helped evolve for our business and others.
Well, I think what is so important about the work that you do is this like accessibility to storefronts because, like you said, I mean, some of these rents, period, are expensive. And then the contracts, like you get stuck into what, like you said, 5, 10, 15, 20 year contracts, which as a small business, that's almost like an impossible thing to sign on to. I mean, we all know that retail is changing all the time, consumerism is changing, inflation, blah, 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 pandemic. So, I mean, to have this sort of trial space and time to even see if retail is something you like, and B, to see if it can be, fruitful and profitable. I think that's really amazing because, as creatives, sometimes we just have to try things and to commit to like a long thing where you have to, the long contract and like you said, paint the walls and get the stuff up and do all of those bills and stuff that really adds up and that can be really overwhelming and like maybe even a poor decision.
It's true. You know, the many times that I've seen a small business get in over their heads, coming from my retail real estate background, seeing amazing entrepreneurs who just sign on for a little bit more than they were ready for. There needs to be this stepping stone. And so that's what we're all about creating. And going into something eyes wide open, you're always going to learn so much through that experience. We see and hear that it's transformational and it doesn't always have the outcome that you expect. You may say, my dream is to have a storefront. I've wanted this all my life. I'm finally, here testing it out. And then you may come away from the experience saying, wow, retail is exhausting. I love it when I have the energy and when I'm in my peak season, but there's so many highs and lows. There's so many cycles. I don't know that I want this storefront every day for the rest of my life. Maybe there's a different approach. And on the complete opposite side of that, we also have a lot of entrepreneurs who come into this totally thinking it's a marketing play. I want to do this for the holiday season or whatever it may be, and loving it, getting the retail bug, saying, "I'm never leaving this. I want a permanent space. I wanna do this, and create something special in a physical environment ongoing." So, it's really, really interesting to see what the outcomes are, and I think it's a wonderful way to de-risk that whole scenario.
Yeah, and I think the flexibility is really cool in itself as we sort of explore more hybrid forms of selling, period. Like having just a holiday pop-up could be a really, you know, cool way to boost your sales and have a presence, but not all the time, not have some of those hardships of slow seasons,
Yeah,
employees, etc., rents.
right. Exactly. All of the factors and variables that go into it. It's true.
So, yeah, I mean, what are some ways? I mean, we already sort of talked. I would love a little bit more detail about like how you help folks establish in these spaces.
So for Project Pop-Up, we're much more hands-on. And so we help them in a few different ways and provide education and community to go along with that. So we have our course, it's a masterclass online called the Pop-Up Playbook. So even though we're offering them the space and a lot of the sources that go into it, being aware of the entirety of the process is huge. Like understanding what it's like for Project Pop Up, but also outside of what we do, outside of any of our spaces, we want everyone to be able to navigate this path for themselves and really feel confident going through it. So that is, scouting your space, figuring out what your season is, if you're doing this on your own or if you're doing this in collaboration with others, sourcing fixtures, figuring out signage, permitting. There's a lot of things, and as I sort of spew them off, it sounds overwhelming, but we're really trying to help streamline that so it's not overwhelming, it's not crushing. You just take it a little bit at a time. You bring in great people who can help support you along that journey, and it gets so much easier. Once you've done it the first or second time, it just starts to click together and you get a sense of your cadence. But really, we're all about helping for these brands to take whatever it is they've created online or in a market space and build a physical experience. So we're giving them a blank canvas. We're giving them an easier lease term. We're giving them reduced rent. We're giving them typically a full store of fixtures that are designed to be flexible in nature. We're helping them through the design process and installation of window vinyls and A-frames. We're helping them with understanding the level that they need to show up for their marketing and social media and consistency. And then, perhaps most importantly, thinking beyond the physical storefront. So, thinking about how this connects back to their brand and their growth, even after the pop up is open, using it as a content capture opportunity, forming relationships with customers in person that are going to be attracted to their story and want to keep supporting them long after the pop-up ends or if they continue in another space, building your email list, all of those things that are just really important for a small business and have value even above and beyond sales, which of course have value too.
So, how do you know you're ready to open a store or a temporary store?
Great question. I would highly recommend that anyone who is thinking about opening a permanent store, if they have any piece of hesitation or financial uncertainty, test it with a pop up first. And that can take a lot of different forms. It can be a weekend, a week, a month, a season. We consider a pop up anything all the way up to a year. But there are a few basic pillars. And it comes down to sort of brand readiness and founder mindset, I would say. So, do you have an operational website that you're going to drive people from to your store and back online? And sometimes that answer is no. We do get a lot of applicants from people who are not quite there yet or haven't prioritized that. Perhaps they do a lot of markets, but you do need an online presence to complement your offline presence and some form of social media. I'm not saying you have to go all in with all channels, but something to drive people back to, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is you've chosen to start building your brand around. Uh, and then I would say founder mindset really comes down to being willing to clear your schedule or make accommodations for when you can't. So, staffing is a huge part of what makes a store successful. You have to be open for people to find and shop with you. You have to be ready to build those partnerships and host in store events and give people reasons to come back again and again and literally maximize the time that you have, whether that's a week or a month or a year. This is your chance to really test it and see what you can make of it. So, you want to pull as many levers as possible during that time. So I would say those are sort of the three core pieces. And then, it's flexible. So there's lots of different ways that you can approach it as long as you have the baseline and the commitment. There's
Yes.
there's probably a financial component too. You do want to we walk through budgeting a lot, but you do want to have, a cushion so that if you only broke even or if you needed to take a loss because of whatever reason, life, weather, retail, you have that bit of cushion in that event.
So, what are some ways to like make sure that your retail space is successful? Like, how are we driving traffic to the space?
Yes, there are so many fantastic ways to do it. I would start with building out a calendar. So you want to be really proactive about how you're utilizing that time. So you're going to think about all the touch points in store and online. How are you getting the word out? How are you using your physical space? All of your marketing opportunities, windows and storefront. That's a real estate play. Some direct to consumer companies are opening stores because it's cheaper for customer acquisition. It is really putting your brand front and center. And so there's a ton of physical opportunity, but you want to complement that online. You want to be sending emails and putting social media messages out there. And figuring out what that store experience is so that when people do find you, they're really intrigued and excited. You have to focus on customer service once they get through the door. Um, Beyond that, though, I would say, like within that calendar, make friends with your neighbors, get to know the restaurants and other local retailers that are there, and think about how you can collaborate and cross promote one another. I always like to say like, a rising tide lifts all ships or shops in this case. So there's so much value in coming into an area and being warm and friendly and open and wanting to support other businesses and having them do the same for you. So that should not be overlooked. Make friends in the neighborhood. And then think about, what events do I want to do during this time? Am I leaning into a holiday season? Can I make something fun out of a January month? Do I do a big sale this time of year? Do I have inventory to clear? Can I bring experiential components in? Can I do personalization? There are just so many different fun ways to create customer engagement and experience, but you need to be intentional about it.
Yeah, and I think one of the really cool things, like you said, besides that customer acquisition quality with a in-person space is also that experiential quality and thinking about if you want to host workshops or have gift wrapping, like what sort of activations can you have to entice people to come in on that specific day. And I think that can be really powerful for folks to think about. And I think a lot of this translates to some of it translates to the online space too, and I think that's uh, thinking about how we can sort of create experiences both online and person, I think can really create more success than if you're not thinking about that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thinking of your business holistically, looking at all of these different places that people are interacting with you and how you can have that common thread, how you can do an online workshop versus an offline, how you can collaborate with other brands in multiple spaces.
Yeah, I think the collaboration on quote unquote Main Street can be really fruitful too, right? I mean, you want the restaurant next door to be talking about you. You want the coffee shop to be talking about you. All of these things, like how can you lift each other up when someone's physically walking on that street?
Yes, absolutely.
So, okay, what does your day to day look like? What do you do in a day?
Such a good question. My each of my days look a little different, which honestly is how I like it. It keeps things really interesting. I love pop-ups and working with lots of brands in that I'm always discovering something new and learning about a new product or service or founder and building connection. But generally speaking, I am up early. I've got three little kids. We're getting them all ready and out the door. So that's always kind of a hectic start to the day. But then I have the opportunity to be in my office space here or work from home, as the case may be. And also I do have a lot of Zoom meetings. If the team is not gathering in person in the office together, there are about seven of us who meet on a regular basis and put together all of the moving parts of these pop ups and initiatives that we run. Um, and then I spend a lot of time working on external projects and supports on building content for our community and our courses, on working with the municipalities. I mean, there is actually no surprise to anyone who owns a business listening, there's so much paperwork that goes into it, so the behind the scenes is not super glamorous. I'm working on lots of grant applications, lots of government contracts, lots of developer contracts, which is not the fun part, but it is the reality of the things that have to go into every week or day to day. But generally speaking, I tend to have more meeting heavy mornings and then more flexible afternoons. That seems to work well with my team and with my flow. And, running a business and building a life, they're all interspersed. So some days I'm taking the kids to doctor's appointments, some days I'm working late, and I'm always refining it. Yeah, I was just talking the other day, we moved our team meetings from 9:30 in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Mondays, and it's just been like this very small but pivotal change for us. And so I'm looking for more and more ways to build that in where we're all just kind of building the right rhythm and schedule.
So, do you have any like tips for scheduling? What is your calendar system like? Any tips to sort of balance, having a family and running a business?
Sure. So everything does go on my calendar. It is a very full Google Calendar. I've got my work and my personal in different color codes. Um, so I am very much focused on just keeping myself accountable in that way. We do use Asana for project management, which has been both a huge blessing and a big learning curve because there's just a lot of detail that can get lost in the shuffle of our various projects. And I would say, hard as it is to give yourself grace to realize that, family and the whole mix of life's obligations and exciting opportunities, things are not always going to go according to schedule. And try to give myself grace about that. I really try to give my team grace about that because we all have different family circumstances, but just being a safe working environment where we can talk to each other about what's going on both personally and professionally. I don't feel like you can separate the two in terms of like needing to be nimble, have each other's backs, cross train. So if someone is out, you can support each other. So that's just really kind of the human element, and I think that comes above everything else. Um, I do have like little tricks that I've picked up along the way. I don't know if you've ever used one of these, but oop, the time block that I probably just set. So if there's something that I'm having trouble getting done or that I know I really need to focus on, I'll set that or I'll use an ALEXA timer, something to keep me really focused because, of course, like everyone, it's easy to squirrel away our time, have it go to social media scrolling or something else. So when you're running a business and you have a lot that you're trying to accomplish, just staying as focused as possible and time blocking or, holding yourself accountable in whatever ways possible, I find to be really huge.
So, what is your revenue stream like then? So you have your classes and then uh are the small businesses paying you like as a consultant, or are you getting some of that grant money? How does that work?
Sure. So we have a few different revenue streams, most of which are not driven by the small business. So we have municipalities and the grant funding, that is one source of income. And then we have the developer contracts, our landlords who are typically paying for exposure, the application process, us to match make for their spaces. So in those scenarios, we've really shifted the cost onto the property owner, the partner with the city or town. Where that varies a little bit is through our courses and through the retail playground, which is the community we're actually launching this month, which is an accessibly priced but brand based payment. So that is membership based. It is about inviting them in to have access to all of these resources and courses and support from us, outside experts, and each other. And that is where we're making a little bit of a shift, where that is becoming something that the brand can pay for, become part of, and have instant access to, because a lot of our other projects involve waiting for the right space to become available, waiting for something in their geography, waiting for, the stars to align. There are a lot of different layers of approval, and we want everyone to feel really empowered to just take action and start building something for their business. It's not, you know, you can dream all day, but we want you to really be empowered to do it and move things forward.
And what does your team look like today?
So today we have 7 amazing women who are part of the team and an assortment of wonderful contractors as well. But essentially, it's myself, it's our COO, who also leads a lot of our project pop up and is a professional photographer. It's our creative director, who also runs her own brand and social media agency. It's our catalyst and head of community, who is involved in so much of the brand communication and really understanding the needs and being that support system. We also have our head of strategic partnerships, who is on the matchmaking side heavily, helping to talk with the brands, get to know their needs. She has a great wholesale background. There's a lot of different pieces that she brings into thinking through what the right fit is for someone. We also have a project manager who keeps the glue together in Asana and all of the paperwork. And we have a team coordinator who's our most recent hire, who's really been a wonderful addition to getting through the general inbox and making sure everyone's been tasked with the right thing and that it can move through the system. So I think I got everyone there. But I would say the biggest thread that's been really interesting for me as a leader is that I love working with other entrepreneurs, and it's just happened pretty organically. I've been so fortunate to build a team of people who really enjoy each other's company and are super productive together. We just get a lot done. It is not all a full-time team. So we are just as flexible in how we approach scheduling and work as we are with how we approach retail. This is about bringing together people with really incredible talents that can collaborate internally to make a big impact. So it's been one of the greatest joys and sort of unexpected pieces of building up next.
I love it. What advice do you have for folks who are thinking about hiring and starting to build their team?
Let's see. I have lots. I mean, I started as a solo founder. I've been through every stage of this. And for some people, that is what they want, that they really thrive on that independence and not having to manage anyone. And I think there is a sustainable path for that through other partnerships and contractors. But if you are thinking of hiring someone, whether that's part time or full, get really clear on what you want that role to look like as early as possible. Think about what you're struggling with, what you think, you know, someone else doing. It is really hard as a business owner to be wearing all the hats all the time. And I was pretty aware of that early on in terms of like wanting to hire people smarter than me, bringing in other skill sets and not being afraid to say when I don't know something because it takes so long to go through the path of figuring it out, perhaps not to land in the ideal spot. So, just looking at sort of what your core capabilities are, what you really enjoy doing, what you don't want to offload to a new team member, and then what you really do need. What would make a huge change in your day to day, and just start putting it on paper. A job description can evolve. And then I think as clear as you need to be on that, you also need to be open-minded for when you are interviewing or connecting and putting the word out to your community that you're looking to make a hire. I think every one of my team members has come through a warm relationship. It's not come through, posting on a job board. It doesn't mean you can't hire that way. You certainly can, but I think just utilizing your network and getting to know people maybe in a different capacity before they become part of your team can be really instrumental in building a sustainable model.
I love that. I love my team also, and I could talk about this for
Mhm.
so long. I think all my current team came from just posting on our social media
Oh,
also.
wow.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, some warm relationships, some, just internet randoms that have turned out to be really amazing. So, yeah, I also agree, like, the warm relationship or just posting to your own community where people sort of, like, already get what you're about, I think is a better choice than, like, LinkedIn, etcetera, at least initially. It
Yeah.
maybe I could be wrong, but
The other
yeah.
thing is, like, have the mindset of, like, you're always hiring, because I will get people reaching out to me saying, "Hey, do you have anything available?" And if I don't, that's okay. I keep their information on file. We can keep in touch if something opens up, because I find the people who are proactively excited about you and your brand are the ones that you want to attract. So
Yes.
keep your doors open.
And there's always more to do.
There's
Like,
always more to do. Yeah.
you find someone you like, find something for them to do because there's always something to be done.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so back to retail then. How can folks get in touch with you if they want to start to dip their toes in retail?
Absolutely. Well, there's a few different ways. You can go right to our core website, which is poppingupnext.com. You can also follow us on Instagram. It's our primary social media at Popping Up Next. We also have a site for projectpopup.com and at Project Popup. I have Instagram at the Allison Yee. And soon we will have the retailplayground.com, pop-up-playbook.com. So there's lots of different touch points where you can get to know us, get to know all that we are offering and providing for support to emerging brands and property owners all over. But we're really accessible. We like to get a lot of information, have you share with us upfront what you're looking for, what your dreams are to test drive brick and mortar, and then we have this amazing team, as we said, that will keep brands top of mind and that will get you plugged into the right spot. So whether that's our community or a physical space or a combination, there's lots of ways to connect.
Perfect. So go check out the site if you are thinking about dipping your toes in the retail space. We'll make sure that we leave all those links in the show notes. And of course, you can always reach out if you need more information. We'll put you in touch with Allison and her team. And thank you so much, Allison. This has been so lovely. Thank you for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Great to chat.